everybody. Lovely to be here. And thank you to Bree and everybody at the team at the Ballymaloe Food Festival for inviting me to come and give a demonstration this afternoon. I will be working with Emer Fitzgerald this afternoon. Emer makes everything happen, basically. Emer is the puppeteer. Absolutely. I'm merely the puppet in this particular extravaganza. So, I'm going to cook 3 dishes this afternoon. The first dish, which I would normally serve as a starter, perhaps you could have it for supper or maybe a lunch dish, scrambled eggs with smoked eel on grilled bread. Now, another day you could replace the eel with smoked mackerel or smoked salmon, but we'll talk more about that. And that's a funny thing, because normally when you think about scrambled eggs, you think, well, I make them, I'm going to serve them immediately, because that's what you normally do. You nearly have to race to the table with them before they set. But this particular technique means you can make the scrambled eggs ahead of time, and they hold perfectly, and you can have them warm or even at room temperature. So I think it's really delicious and very savory. Then for main course, I'm doing a pretty classic dish called chicken Véronique. And this is chicken with grapes in English. And every time you see Véronique in a recipe title, it tells you there's going to be grapes and more or less always cream. So another day it might be sole Véronique or guinea fowl Véronique or quail, that sort of thing. And it's quite a simple dish. It's quite quick to prepare, and it's smart enough to serve to anybody, as far as I'm concerned. Then with that, a new potato would be just perfect. And the spuds are just good, just getting really good here now, the new potatoes, which is something we eagerly await every year. And the other thing we eagerly await, of course, is asparagus. So for about 6 weeks of the year, we have our own asparagus, and when we have our own, we eat it, and then when we don't have our own, we forget about it until the following year, and that's just the way it is. I'll talk, seasonal, exactly. So I'll talk more about that as well, but this will go perfectly with the chicken. And then I'm going to make what I describe as posset, a little posset, but which is a little set cream. So it's a lemon and raspberry posset brûlée. So we're going to make a little lemon posset with put some raspberries in, and then we're going to finish it off like you'd finish off a creme brulee with some caramel on the top. And that's a really lovely thing. It can be made a couple of days in advance if you want to, if you like to get organized, as I think many cooks do. And you could serve that for a dinner or a family meal or whatever it happens to be for. So I'm going to start off with the chicken dish. And I'm using lovely chicken. This chicken that I'm using just the chicken breasts. The legs I would, of course, keep for roasting or doing a casserole or a stew or something of that nature. And as you'll see here, we've taken the skin off the chicken. You could leave it on if you want to. And what we're doing with the chicken skin, by the way, just to show you, we might crank that up to nuclear sort of version. We have stretched a little bit of chicken skin, which doesn't look very appealing, it has to be said at this stage, but we're going to roast that, and hopefully, by the end of our demonstration, that will be cooked through and crispy, and it is a total delight. Okay, and otherwise, of course, you don't have to do that. You could keep that, but keep it for your stock pot. And equally, you'd have kept the bones from your carcass and all the rest of it for your stock pot. So this is quite a simple technique. I'm going to cook the chicken with the assistance from Emer for turning on this hob, which I have no idea how to use, in a pan, a frying pan. And now, when you're cooking a piece of meat, chicken, steak, lamb chop, even a piece of fish for that matter, it's always a good idea to dab it dry. Okay, before you do anything, before you introduce the fat to it. Our fat today is butter, another day it might be olive oil or some such. Just dab it dry like that. And that means that there's no moisture left on the surface of the chicken, so when the chicken hits the pan, no steam is created by the moisture, which means you have every opportunity to get your chicken to brown immediately. It's a game changer with things like steaks. So steak, dab it dry, then you put on your olive oil or whatever. But it really, really is worth doing that. And my butter for this is here, I'd say. That looks like it. And when I'm using butter, I don't want to use too much. I absolutely love butter. It's a wonderful fat. So I like to use the minimum amount to maximum effect. So rather than putting the butter into the pan, I'm putting the butter onto the chicken breast itself. This way, I can use the minimum amount of butter to maximum effect. So every bit of butter I use will be doing a job. Do you know what I mean? There's none of it sort of that superfluous in the pan. moisturizing your pan with butter, because that's not, not really a thing, okay? So a little bit of butter on, and there are very few ingredients in this recipe, really. It's just butter and cream, and well, we'll talk about the grapes in a moment. There's a little purgatorial grape peeling discussion to be had, but we'll talk about that. So a little bit of butter on there. Yeah, there we are, like that. No, I think it's fine. That's grand. Now wait until your pan is hot enough, okay? So butter on. I haven't put salt and pepper on. You could have the salt and pepper. Actually, you know what? I will put the salt and pepper on now. Little pinch of salt. And this pepper mill, which is the Rolls Royce of pepper mills, I'm told. Yeah, okay. Just a little. Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable. This could be used as a weapon if in other circumstances, but let's not talk about such unsavory goings-on at the moment. Okay, right. I'm using a lovely organic chicken from one of the only very few, I think possibly the only remaining organic chicken producer in Ireland. I may not be absolutely correct about that, but Mary Ring from County, it's Kilkenny, Wexford, Carlow. Yeah, and beautiful chickens that we use at the cookery school all the time. Pardon? Kilkenny, Mary Ring, really wonderful chickens. They're expensive, which they need to be. So I'd be using the carcass to make a stock or a broth out of it. Every little bit of skin, bone, every bit of it would be used to try and get as much value for money. Then when you're putting a piece of meat into the pan, this is a bit of chicken, obviously, you need to hear a sizzle. So that's not giving me a sizzle. So I'm going to try and get that a bit hotter there now. Okay, here we are. Here is where I'm going to struggle. Hiya, horribly, okay, all right. Everybody needs an humor in their life, quite seriously. Okay, so let's get that a little bit hotter, because if the pan isn't hot, as you know, it just sort of sits there and stews. Because when you put a piece of meat in the pan, the heat draws the juices out of the meat to the surface of the meat. And if they don't hit heat straight away, you won't get that caramelization of the sugars. And the opportunity to achieve that is lost. So we'll just give that just a little second longer. And then I'm going to be quite careful here. I'm going to put a tight-fitting lid on this pan. And also I have a little disc of parchment paper. That could be greaseproof paper, just to keep in the steam. Because steam equals liquid, okay? And if the steam escapes, it means you end up with less liquid in the pan. And that liquid is going to be the basis for the sauce. Okay, let's go and see what's happening here now. Okay, yeah, okay, that's fine. It could be a tiny bit more enthusiastic than that, but that's okay. It's a relatively snug fit, and that's a good idea. Okay, a relatively snug fit, okay? So in the recipe, I say heat the pan, dab chicken breasts with kitchen paper, discard the paper, and spread the skin side of the chicken, little butter, and place the buttered side down on the pan. The chicken should sizzle on contact and continue to cook until the chicken is golden brown, and then we're going to turn it over and do it on the other side, and then we're just going to my paper and my tight-fitting lid, and we'll let it cook away until it is properly cooked through. And then we'll come back to this then later on and finish it with our cream and grapes and so on. So, but I talk about the grapes now. I suppose I could, Emer, yeah. Okay, so these are grapes. Okay, that's stating the obvious. But more importantly, these are peeled grapes. Okay, yeah. That Rory peeled every single one of them. Yes, I did. I actually did. I thought, yeah. And how do you peel a grape? You sit on a chair and you peel off the skins off the grape like that. You can decide if life is too short to peel a grape, okay? But what I would do if you weren't peeling them, these are seedless grapes, which is a great advantage, I'm going to tell you. But if they weren't seedless, you want to pop out the seeds with a paper clip or something. I mean, these are first world problems. Let's face it. But this is what we do. Why do we do it? Because they taste nicer. It is as simple as that. The skins get a bit tougher in the cooking. Now, when you use the correct amount of butter, you don't have masses of oily butter in the pan. You know what I mean? So turn over. I don't want too much color on that. That's perfect. These simple techniques, like, browning a piece of meat using the correct amount of fat, are really important. And they're techniques that will stand to you every day of your cooking life. A little bit of parchment paper, or that could be greaseproof, and then the lid on. Tight-fitting lid. In recipes, when it says a tight-fitting lid, and you think, really? Yes, really. Because the purpose of a tight-fitting lid is to keep steam, or not to prevent evaporation. I think we could turn the heat down a little bit under this now, Emer. So it's maybe to a 5. and we're going to cook that until the chicken is cooked through, because as you know, irregardless of how happy a life the chicken has had, it must be cooked through. So I'll show you exactly how to test that in a couple of minutes. Our remaining ingredients are going to be our peeled and pipped grapes. So I think, by the way, by the time you've done that many grapes, you have about 2 lengths worth of penance already done. So you're good until about 2028. You can eat chocolate all the way through Lent, okay? Anyway, there we are. And we have cream and lemon, and the asparagus will cook later on. Okay, next thing, Emer, posset. Okay, so posset is a lovely, simple thing. It's a little set cream. There's been a lot of posset around over the last few years, even though it's a really sort of old-fashioned thing. I'd make this for a dinner party or for a family meal at home, whatever it happens to be. And the ingredients are simple, and the ingredient list is short. So we have some cream. We're fortunate in this country to be able to go into any shop and buy cream of really lovely quality. So I start off by putting my cream in a saucepan. And again, I've chosen, you know, a nice little snug fit. And then I'm going to add in some caster sugar, because this is a dessert, okay? And that goes on the heat. Yeah, sorry, yes. That's honest, yeah, great, okay, all right. And then stir that just to encourage the sugar to dissolve. And then there's one very important point about this. In the recipe, I say, stir the saucepan occasionally to encourage the sugar to dissolve, and maintain that bare simmer for 5 minutes. So we're going to simmer it very gently. What is going to cause these little creams to set like that, this one we did earlier, and I'll show you the texture a little bit later, is not the boiling of the cream. It's the addition of the lemon juice. So don't think you have to thicken the cream in here. That's a mistake. What we're really just trying to do is just to make sure that the sugar is sort of properly dissolved. So that's going to come up to a simmer, and I'll simmer it at the merest little bubble for a few minutes. And then we'll add in our 50 mils of cream. And cream, as you know, or of lemon juice. Okay, and lemon juice, as you know, comes from one of these yellow things. I reckon, do they still exist, those plastic lemons with the lid on? That must have been invented by a man. I'm sorry. I'm saying that. I mean, I don't know what to say about that, honestly. There's convenience, and then there's just, anyway, something else altogether. Anyway, it's 50 ml of freshly squeezed lemon juice, which we'll add to our cream and sugar in due course, but that's going to simmer away there for 5 minutes. Now, this is quite rich, so I am going to set it in small little glasses like this, or you can use cups or various different things, as you can see. And you could just have it as a simple lemon posset, but the raspberries are just starting to get good, so I'm going to put a few little raspberries in. I suppose you could put strawberry in here as well, Emer, couldn't you? Yeah, strawberry would be lovely as well. So, and these give a lovely little, just a little sour tang, because raspberries are essentially sour. You know, if you just taste a raspberry, you wouldn't say a raspberry was sweet, really. In fact, you'd hardly ever say a strawberry was sweet nowadays either. But, and I'm going to do a lovely little Shanagari one there, just for, which will be sort of shallower, but from lovely Shanagari pottery. Okay, that's grand. Okay, so far, so good. Our cream is on with our sugar, and that's just coming to a simmer, Emer. Our chicken, I'd say, is cooking at about the perfect temperature there now. Okay, that's all good. So what would you like me to do next? I can do the caramel, okay. So we're going through the process of making the posset. You'll see all of that. And here's some possets we made earlier. Okay, which I brought this morning in my car from home. But anyway, there you go. Am I a control freak? Anyway, something going on here. So to make the caramel here, I've got a little bit of sugar. Okay, so this is exactly one of the ways if you're making a creme brulee. And I've got 110 grams of sugar, and I've got 80 ml of cold water, about like that. And we're going to put this on the heat, thank you, to make a caramel. And you need to be ready to go. So I have my spoon ready, because we're going to pour the hot caramel straight from the saucepan over the possets, and that will set into a lovely little cracking caramel, or a caramel that would crack. So just stir the sugar every now and then. You don't have to stir it continuously. Whoopla, oh God above. Okay. Okay, there we are. No, Rory, actually, truly, Rory. No, yeah, thanks very much, Emer. Okay, all right. Well, look, we'll just pretend that was all wonderful there. Okay, yes, okay, lovely, okay. That's all good. So stirring the sugar occasionally. We'll put a tiny little bit more cream in there. Now, with caramel, it's all very straightforward, really. And it's a great technique to be able to make caramel because, another day you might make a caramel coffee sauce, or you might add a little bit of whiskey to it, or sometimes orange and so on. But in our case today, it's for this little brittle brûlée top on the possets. Okay, all good. Let's just have a little look into our chicken pan in a minute. So we had a tight-fitting lid, okay, and with our greaseproof paper. So when you take off the lid, there should be sort of steam trapped inside, which there is. And to test to see if the chicken is cooked, what I usually do, I can get rid of that paper now, I'd say, at this stage. Put it in there, thanks, Emer. I'm just going to press on the chicken like that. And this is not cooked. It's not cooked because it's tender. And we'll do a little test, all of us, in a few moments when the chicken is at the correct stage. I'll show you exactly how to test it. So my lid goes back on. But you see what's happened? There's a small amount of juice in the bottom of the chicken pan there, and that's completely pure. And that's going to be the basis for our sauce. There's not going to be an awful lot of sauce here, but there will be enough for that amount of chicken. But the chicken isn't cooked because it doesn't feel quite firm to the touch yet. Now I've got a little sink of water under there like that. Perfect. Okay, our sugar is more or less dissolved for our caramel. So just encouraging the sugar to dissolve. And when all of your sugar is dissolved, get rid of the spoon. Okay, so that's the last of my sugar dissolving. Okay. Rightio. Would we say, is that about 5 minutes on the posset now, Emer? Yeah? Including boiling over time, it is. Okay. So the posset, that was simply simmering your cream and your sugar, and then you pour in your lemon juice, and nothing dramatic is going to happen in front of your eyes. Okay? The drama doesn't really happen until this gets cold and sets. Sometimes I allow the cream to cool a little bit before I pour it over the raspberries. Or today, I'm not allowing it to cool. I'm putting it in like that. And then you keep those at room temperature, let them come to cool to room temperature, and you pop them into your fridge. And these will set to a lovely little set cream. And they're lovely and sort of old-fashioned, but with an absolutely timeless flavor. Let me see. Now, you might think I'm fierce mean by the amount I'm putting in there, but you'll know what works in your house. I don't mind if there's a few little raspberries poking out the top like that. By the way, you can have them just as they are. You don't have to do the caramel, but as you can imagine, the caramel gives a little bit, next little bit of sort of lux, and a little bit, there's a lovely thing of cracking the caramel with the back of your spoon. Okay, that's that. Put that there for a moment. So those, let them cool to room temperature and then into the fridge. 2 hours, or you could have made those yesterday. In fact, they will keep in the fridge for a couple of days. Let's look at our caramel. Nothing much to note, really, except that, as you can see here, the bubbles are getting slightly bigger in the pan. That's all that's happening as the water is evaporating. And I have my spoon ready for pouring the caramel over the little possets. So I'm going to just show you what the posset looks like, so which means one of these I won't be able to set. That's not the end of the world. So that's what the posset looks like at this stage. You see that? A lovely little delicate set cream. I remember it went into the little containers liquid. So it's a lovely thing. Actually, maybe we might still be able to get a bit of caramel on top of that. I'm fierce mean with it, but anyway. Okay, right. Okay, that's all good there. Chicken, is that doing anything at all, really? I don't know if that's doing very much. Anyway, Emer will sort all that out in just a moment. When your caramel is on cooking, don't leave the room. In fact, almost don't turn on the phone, or don't pick up the phone. Certainly when it gets to the stage where it's nearly ready. And have a little bit of water ready, and you'll see what that's going to be for in a moment, because when we've poured all the caramel on there, we need to stop the caramel from cooking. It's much less complicated than it sounds. So just boil this down again. Sugar and water in a saucepan. Stir to encourage the sugar to dissolve. Then when the sugar is dissolved and you've got a syrup, take out the spoon and then just let it caramelize. And you can see in the pan now, can you see in there the way it's caramelizing somewhat unevenly? See there? Can you see there that little kind of half moon shape of caramel? Don't stir it. Don't stir it. What you could do is you can tilt the pan a little bit like that to allow the dark caramel to run into the pale and the pale to run into the dark, and it evens out. And we're looking sort of for more or less a sort of a hazelnutty chestnut color. If you stir it, if you put anything cold into it, it seizes and it blocks, and then you're in trouble. So I'm going to stick with this for a moment. Lovely. By the way, you can also, with these, just sprinkle them with sugar, like demerara or caster sugar, and you could torch them, have a blowtorch, if you could get the blowtorch from under the bed. And then you could use that, and that would be lovely. But I think I love showing how to make caramel like this, because we all have a saucepan at home and we all have a spoon, so it's something, you know, that we can achieve nice and easily. Now we're getting close to the color I want at this stage, so I'm going to call that a pale chestnutty, hazelnutty color, like that. And then you need to act straight away. Spoon in hand, possets ready. Okay, right. So then just pour a little bit of that on top of each one. Don't touch it with your fingers or anything under any circumstances. And that's going to set to a lovely little sort of cracking top. Scant amount, just enough. Don't touch it under any circumstances, I said, because it's going to be hot. Just about enough there. Do that last little bit, like that. And then at this stage, what's a good idea, if you want, see, can I get a little bit just to finish that one off. We'll leave these for a minute, by the way, and I'll tap the top of them in a few moments just to show you exactly what that's going to look like. Scraping the last little bit out. Okay, great. What's a good idea? And well, then actually I have no caramel left over, which is absolutely the ideal situation, which means I'm not wasting anything. But in any event, you could just pour a little bit of water into your pan just to stop it from cooking. And then that sort of starts the whole wash-up process. Okay, we'll leave those to one side for a moment, and then I'll show you how that's a lovely, crispy, little cracking sounding topping on those in a couple of minutes. Okay, back to our chicken? Back to our chicken. Okay, great. Okay, now, look, cooking away, we've got even more juice. Again, it's not a lot, but it's enough. So I'm pressing the chicken like that, and it feels firm to the touch. So if you could all please bring your little finger to your thumb like that, everybody, and put it up in the air. Join the cult, come on. Don't be shy. Okay, and with your other hand, your other index finger, press the bottom of your thumb. Do you feel that firmness? That's what chicken feels like when it's cooked. Okay, you can, of course, use a thermometer if you want to. Use the signs wherever it's available to you. Or you can cut into them. But that's exactly what it feels like. And with chicken, there's only one setting. Okay, that's it. It must be cooked through. If you were cooking a steak, by the way, you could go to the next finger, from your little finger to your second finger. There's a little bit of give. So that's the first one, that's a well-done steak, pressing it. The second finger, medium well, a little bit of give. Third finger, medium. Fourth finger, medium rare, and then rare is soft and blue is still mooing. Okay, but that's well worth doing. So that's why when you see chefs doing this and doing whatever, that's basically what you're looking for. But if you want, you must be sure with chicken. So of course, if you wish, use a little thermometer probe. Is this for my chicken here, Emer? Yeah. Yes. Lovely. Okay. So now I've established that the chicken is hot. So I can take that and just keep it warm. This one here, lovely. Yeah, perfect. Great. Keep that warm in there. And then this sauce is very simply just the addition of cream. Okay, just the addition of cream. So nothing could have created these juices, by the way, except the chicken. There's not a chef in the world that can make this. Only the chicken can do it. It's absolute purity. By the way, if you're just to have this with that chicken, it would be really wonderful, okay? Completely 100% pure. I'm going to add in a little bit of cream, which we all know nowadays is not going to kill us stone dead. Never was going to kill us stone dead. Everything in moderation and everything in balance. And I'm going to let that bubble up, and then when that's bubbled through, I'm going to add in my grapes, and that's pretty much that. Really simple, really straightforward. I like to put the grapes into the sauce as late as possible, so they're almost only barely warmed through. And then you have the real freshness of the fruit, cutting through the richness of the sauce and cutting through the richness of the chicken. And my herb of choice to serve with this today is chervil. a chervil, which is not nearly as available as it should be. This is really easy to grow, by the way, and gardeners will know this. And it's got a little aniseedy flavor. If it looks like a parsley of nervous disposition, I would say, okay, kind of a genteel little creature with a sort of slightly aniseedy flavor. It works beautifully with the grapes. If I didn't have this, I would use tarragon instead, which is nice and available. Or a few lemon thyme leaves would be quite good. Okay. All right, so that's it. Cream coming up to a simmer. It's going to be self-thicking, so this is gluten-free here. And we'll finish that sauce in a few minutes. And chervil today, tarragon another day. Now, the other thing I could do, would I get my asparagus on then and be done with it? Yeah. Okay, asparagus. So this is beautiful asparagus, which I cut at you. Asparagus you cut. You don't really pick. For anybody in the audience grow asparagus? It's a wonderful, wonderful crop. Now, thank you very much. Lovely, well done, congratulations. I mean, it takes a few years. You have to wait a while. It's not as bad as when you plant a walnut tree. You have to wait at least 10 years before you might see a walnut. But anyway, asparagus you always cut under the soil. So you get your knife and you go down where the spear has disappeared, and you go under the soil and you cut it. As a result, the bottom can be a bit tough. And this is so special, and I give thanks to whoever we give thanks to, whatever it is. Every time we get to use asparagus for the short season that it is. Then, with the asparagus, you go from this, which is called a spear, for good reason, and you go down along it like that, and you keep going, just sort of bending until it wants to snap. Because anything from there down is very tough, okay? That I would keep for a stock. We're going to a vegetable stock. So go from the top down, the tip down, go as far as you can. Don't be too extravagant. That's good there like that. And then to be really doing things properly, you should peel the base of the stalk so the asparagus isn't stringy. So those I would keep for a vegetable stock. And then a vegetable peeler, just to peel the base of the asparagus like that, so that you don't get any strings. So if you're going to the trouble of buying beautiful asparagus, you might as well sort of do it properly, like that. And then it's cooked very simply in boiling water. Another day, I would just have the asparagus on a bit of toast with lots of melted butter or maybe a soft poached egg, or in an ideal world, with a good spoonful of hollandaise sauce on top. And that is a meal or a dish I look forward to every year, irregardless. Is it old-fashioned? Yes. Is it timeless? Absolutely. Is it ever not relevant? No. It's always relevant. Something that's specific, something that's simple, something that only really in its magnificence is only possible for 6 months of the year. And that's one of the reasons why I love to cook, because I like to wait for things. I like for the magic of a particular ingredient at a particular time, because no other time can replicate that. I mean, obviously you can get asparagus coming from other parts of the world, but asparagus is one of those ingredients that really, really benefits from having been picked as close to the time as when you're going to serve it. Sorry, that was rather a rant about asparagus, wasn't it? But anyway, you can see I take my asparagus seriously. Then to cook the asparagus, which of course you can grill or you can roast in the oven. It can be eaten raw, which doesn't drive me into a frenzy. But anyway, I'm going to poach the asparagus in a little boiling salted water. This is my saltarium, yeah? So a pinch of salt, like that. A little bit more for luck. No, well, not really for luck, but just so it's enough. And we're going to pop them in there. And I don't have a huge amount of water, just enough to cover the asparagus nicely. And we're going to cook those until they're tender. I like asparagus cooked through, not crunchy. If you want crunchy asparagus, I suggest have it raw, or maybe grill it. But we do like it cooked through. And I'm going to leave the lid off at this stage, because essentially it's a green vegetable. And any green vegetable should not be cooked with a lid on. Okay, you should cook a green vegetable, your Brussels sprouts, why am I talking about Brussels sprouts? Any of those sort of things, always cooked without a lid. Cabbage, green beans, are best cooked without a lid. Because the lid, if you leave the lid on, steam comes up, hits the lower side of the saucepan lid, condenses and falls back in, and somewhere a little chemical is created there that takes the color out of the green. But apart from the color, it's the freshness of the flavor that comes from it cooked in the correct amount of water, an enthusiastic amount of salt, no lid, absolutely amazing. Okay, back to our chicken. So our sauce is thickening up ever so lightly there, but that's taking over very nicely. I'm happy with that. Okay, scrambled eggs. Okay, scrambled eggs, as I said at the beginning of class, something you think of, I'll have a scrambled egg for my supper, absolute delight. Anybody have their own hens? Oh, the joy, the absolute unmitigated joy of hens, which don't need a collar, don't need to be walked. Up to this point, thank goodness, you don't need a license for them, but God knows that's maybe imminent, okay? And they give you a perfect food every day. Eat all of your kitchen scraps. They are sustainable on, you know, it doesn't begin to describe the wonders of the gentle little creatures that are laying hens. They're gentle just until, if they break out into your vegetable garden, your attitude to them can change very quickly, because they can do the damage of a JCB in 10 minutes in a seed bed. Anyway, lovely free-range eggs, organic eggs in this case, to which I'm going to add salt. This is for our scrambled eggs with smoked eel. Salt and pepper, like that, another pinch of salt, I'd say. But even before, actually, I get to start scrambling my eggs, I've got lovely smoked eel. This comes from Mr. Heatherman, Frank Heatherman, over there in Belvelly. Beautiful, oily, fat smoked eel, which is a really wonderful ingredient. If I couldn't get smoked eel, I'd use a bit of smoked mackerel or smoked salmon here. And what I do, I cut the smoked eel, off the bone. Are we still alive? Yeah, grand. Off the bone like that. And then I'm going to cut it into little dice. Now, if I was at home, by the way, there's a strong possibility I would take that and find myself a corner and chew right down to the bone of that. I will not put you through that terrifying-sounding vision at this stage, okay? But I wouldn't want to be wasting any of that. It's a delightful ingredient, full of lovely fat and all the omegas and all those things that are supposed to be very good for you. And I'm just dicing it like that. Timber chopping boards, absolutely love. Knife made in Ireland, in Gobeen. So you put your smoked fish into your cream, and I'm just barely going to warm that. That's before I start my scrambled egg. Okay, that's that out of the way. If you were really into your arts and crafts, you could probably tan the little bit of eel skin and make yourself a tiny little coin or credit card pouch. Okay. For those of you who are of sustainably minded, okay. Anyway, that's going on there. You'll think I've completely lost my mind by the goings-on I'm having this afternoon. But anyway, there you are. Okay, let's go back to our chicken now. So just to remind you, we're just warming the eel in the cream, okay? And the asparagus looks to me as if it might be nearly cooked. So to check if it's cooked, take a knife and just check that your knife floats through gently. That needs a minute, Emer. Yep. There's a little bit of resistance. And note, it's still got a lovely, really wonderful color. Okay, back to our chicken. Okay, slightly thickened sauce, to which we add our grapes and swirl those in like that. And we can sit our chicken breasts back in there for a minute or two, which I will grab from the oven, which I'm going to rinse my hands, Emer, after you really don't want to be mixing up the flavors of smoked fish and chicken, I think. Okay, now, the chicken breast, by the way, while it was sitting, has also a lovely little bit of juice has come out of the chicken breast, like that. Okay? I'm going to sit those back in there, and I'm going to bring that to a simmer, and then I can turn that off and come back to it, and you could reheat that later on if you want to. I will taste my sauce, by the way, in a few minutes, just to make sure it's okay for seasoning, and I might put a little bit of lemon juice in there as well. So that's almost nearly ready and sorted. Okay, that was about another minute for our asparagus, which I will strain that, thank you. And the asparagus, Emer, I can put straight into this dish here, actually. Lovely. Actually, I'll do that. I'll put it straight onto the dish, Emer. Yeah, you just sit it up there. Yeah, grand job. Thank you. Look at the color of that. I'm going to take the eye out of you. Absolutely beautiful. And that, any green vegetable, I mean, asparagus is a treat beyond treats, it has to be said. But to go with the chicken and the grapes, and asparagus and grapes can be really wonderful together. So I'll sit that down there. Okay, are we happy about that then for a moment? We're just going to keep that sort of warm. I'm going to leave that oven door sort of half open like that, Emer. Okay, right, where was I? Scrambled eggs. Eel, cream up to a simmer like that. Scrambled eggs. Scrambled eggs cannot be made correctly in a non-stick saucepan. Scrambled eggs have to not quite stick, but nearly stick, if you want real, true scrambled eggs. So I'm using this saucepan, which they will stick to. My eggs, which I've beaten with some salt and pepper. Well, I'm about to beat with salt and pepper. You could put a tiny splash of water into your eggs if you want to. A little bit of milk, a little bit of cream. I often just do them just as they are. Cold saucepan, stone cold. Butter in. This is my butter for my scrambled eggs, Emer. That can be, can't it? Yeah, okay. Might take a little bit more, like that. And then the beaten eggs straight into the cold saucepan. And then we're going to slowly scramble those while I'm turning them with a wooden spoon. Okay. And then, where normally you'd go straight to the table with your scrambled eggs, we're going to add in our creamy eel, smoked salmon, mackerel, whatever you want. Or you could put something vegetarian here. Asparagus would be wonderful, actually. Asparagus would be amazing here for a meat or a fish-free dish, okay? And that will stop the scrambled eggs from cooking. And that's why you can prepare these ahead of time. It's one of the advantages. Okay, next thing, a little bit of grilled bread, or is it too early? We're going to serve our scrambled eggs on grilled bread. Emer, I might turn off. No, that's doing nicely there, actually, but even if it was just on one. Okay, a bit of grilled bread to serve the smoked eel on. So I've got some sourdough bread, as you can see. Some sourdough bread, you almost feel as if you need to crank out the chainsaw to get through the crust, but that's all right. It's part of the reason why we love it. So, and I'm going to just grill this on a dry grill pan. Or you could toast it, or you could put it under your grill in your oven if you wanted to, but just onto a dry grill pan here. Lovely, heavy cast iron grill pan. And I want to get plenty of color on there. So that's going to be my grilled bread for the scrambled eggs. Now, with the scrambled eggs, very little happening really so far. This has to be a sort of a slow process. So you don't have to stir it absolutely continuously at this stage, but there will be a point shortly where we need to definitely be sort of directly involved with it. Okay, will I go back to presenting my possets? Yes. Yeah, okay, let's go back to presenting our possets. Now, we've got a lovely little basket there. So the possets, basically, when you put your little caramel topping on them, that's it. They are ready, and by now, the little caramel should have set so that when you tap the top, you get a lovely little crack like that, and that's delightful then to eat with them. So you don't need anything further. I mean, there might be a case for a little biscuit of some description. I mean, I've used some raspberry there, so if you happen to have a few little raspberry leaves hanging around, you could drape them with a little bit of raspberry leaf like that, which would be nice. What would also be delightful would be maybe a couple of more little fresh, I used all my raspberries. Well, that's fine. They're all in there. A little rose petal maybe might be quite nice, yeah. Do you know that snapdragons are edible? Antirrhinums, with their lovely little velvety color. Is that a step too far? Okay, it'll certainly amuse and be a conversation piece. Okay, but they're really a lovely, really, really simple little thing. You can see though actually the raspberries, the gardeners will be chasing after me actually. Am I burning anything, Emer? No? Okay. Nothing on, okay, so we couldn't be. A few little raspberry leaves. Just lovely, just because we have them at the moment. And they're relevant, because it's what we have in the dish. Like that. Chicken's fine, chicken is off, that's grand. No, I think we're all right. A mint leaf would be lovely on there perhaps as well another day. A little bit of fresh mint. So many wonderful things this time of the year, at most times of the year, in the garden really. The other thing, not to forget about what I'm not using today, but which might be lovely another day. You know, lovely elderflower has just come back into season. That amazing plant, which for most of the year, you know, the shrub is ugly. It's an ugly little shrub or sort of small tree. And then suddenly at this time of the year, it's just really amazing. And so many things you can do. It's interesting though with climate change, and Emer, you'll know all about this being one of the great foragers, because at the moment, the other tree that's in flower, certainly with us, is mountain ash, which used to come in until much, much later. I thought mountain ash was nearly an autumn thing. Well, the berries would be autumn, yeah. But anyway, so just make sure when you're out foraging that you're getting the right thing. Anyway, I think we've gone as far as we need to go there with that little posset. Okay. Oh, believe me, I could go further. Yeah, no, that's really, yeah. It would take very little encouragement now for me to go a bit further there. Okay, back to our scrambled eggs, which are starting to scramble. Okay, so, finally. Actually, I'll take a little more heat here with this, Emer, I'd say. Okay, oh good, and there's something starting to happen here, yeah. We're getting a nice little smell of toast. Now, Well, maybe I'll present my chicken, so will I? And you keep scrambling? Yep. How about that? Would that be good? Okay, says he. Okay, the royal we, I believe, in this scenario. Okay, we have our chicken, which I'm going to bubble up again. Cue Emer, thank you. Okay, and I'm going to taste that sauce. So tasting is really important, just so it's delicious when you, after all your work. So a tiny little taste, different exercise, as you know, to grazing, entirely different pursuit. Okay, and tasting that has told me that that definitely needs more salt. It's delicious. It's full of flavor. That is completely simple. It's chicken, cream, tiny bit of butter so far, and grapes. Okay. Okay, a little more salt there. Then, with an organic chicken, I would be looking at those expensive chicken breasts and wondering, can I serve 4 out of that? Now, you will know straight away that just might not work in your house with hungry appetites and so on. But I'm going to slice the chicken, just also to give it a slightly more elegant finish. Okay, and also to get more slices out of it, basically. Like that. And new potatoes will be absolutely perfect served with this. Really, really delightful. So just fan out our chicken like that. And like that. Lovely Shanagarry pottery plate. Still making lovely pots over in Shanagarry. Okay, and like that. Now, if you want to, if I was doing this at home, I might put the asparagus straight onto the dish there with that. Why don't I do that, just to fill it up? This dish is made in Kilkenny City, by the way, Castle Arch Pottery. We pay for all our dishes, so I'm not, that's just, we just like to tell you the things we love, particularly when they're Irish made. So you can imagine a little asparagus in the middle of the plate like that. And don't forget we have our herb of choice, which is chervil, to go with it. Our sauce, which is lightly thickened, and sometimes you're making something that tastes not great. First stop, pinch of salt. Sometimes the next stop is a little tiny squeeze of lemon juice, and then the third stop is another little knob of butter. Okay, there are other ways, but there are 3 fairly safe ways of doing it, Emer, aren't they? Honestly, yeah. A few little drops of lemon juice just to lift the flavor of everything. Then, our grapes on there like that. How are we scrambling? Yeah, we're starting to scramble. Great. Okay. I'd say a little pot of new spuds. Spoiled spuds, perfect accompaniment. You don't want anything too rich in the line of potato. So nothing like a gratin or anything like that. That would be a big mistake. There's a small amount of sauce, but it's beautifully flavored and, scant but perfect. And there's nothing, I must say personally at home when we're eating and when we use the last little bit of everything from a dish and the dish has, is clean, then that's when I think, well, that's sort of been a success. So the herb of choice is this lovely light chervil. So I'll put little sprigs of chervil on. You could chop the chervil, by the way, as well. Sprinkle it through. And it's what's called a soft herb. So you can eat it off your fork. So it's not like thyme or rosemary or any of those. This looks very 18th century, I have to say, by the way, at this stage. But anyway, there we go. But hopefully in a charming sort of a way. Okay, that's the chicken with asparagus, chicken Véronique with asparagus and chervil. And our scrambled egg is ready. Now, okay, scrambled eggs. Okay, so this is the point where you'd have your toast ready and you'd be wanting to get to the table with that pretty much straight away. But in this case, with a scrambled egg with smoked eel, off the heat it comes. See the way it catches on the bottom? It needs to. If you make scrambled egg in a non-stick, you get something of a confused omelette. That's the problem. Then you put in your cream, and in our case, our smoked eel like that, and that stops it cooking. Okay, that stops it cooking, maintains a lovely soft, creamy consistency, and it's not going to go hard. And you can go phew. Okay, because you've just stopped it cooking like that. And I would do that ahead of time. I've eaten this from cold to warm. You can have it straight away now if you want to. But any of the stages from cold right the way through to hot. It's probably best when it's just warm to hot. Just lovely like that, rich and delicious. Okay, now, then our grilled bread. So grill it well on both sides. Grilled well on both sides, okay. A little drizzle of olive oil or butter. like that. I mean, not being too shy with the olive oil, as you can see. Then a spoon. And as this sits as well, it'll set a little bit more, but that is the perfect consistency now. So this is very savory and very nice, so that you pile that onto your bread. You're not worried about the scrambled egg going hard or anything like that. Lovely. Nice and generous. I mean, another day, this just served with boiled asparagus would be an absolute feast. That's very hot, is it? Okay. I might put it on the basket. I think you can hardly have failed to notice the growing, from as far as I'm concerned, a wonderful revival in Irish craft at the moment. Whether it's glassware or basketry or cabinet making or silver making or knives, all of the different things, it's incredibly exciting. And this comes from a wonderful basket maker called Sarah Jenkinson in Galway. And there are wonderful basket makers now all over the country. So that could be that, just like that. I like to sprinkle it with a little grated Parmesan, okay, which could be optional. But you can imagine the savoriness of the Parmesan is delightful, like that. A good pinch of chopped chives, like that. Okay, and then, because we have them and because it's the time, a few little chive flowers, which are just delicious. Just the little individual little flowers like that. And that lovely oniony flavor of the chive is perfect with the smoked fish. If I was doing this a few weeks ago, I would be sprinkling it with wild garlic flowers, but the wild garlic, which seems to have gone on for longer and longer this year than any other year I can remember. I mean, we started picking, the first wild garlic, three-cornered leek, as it's called, last December, and we're still using it. This is whatever this is. That would be lovely just like that. I'd sometimes cut them into long sort of sticks like that to make them look a little bit more elegant. Lovely crust on them. Doesn't have to be sourdough. I mean, you could use a white yeast bread here. I mean, soda bread wouldn't be the worst, but the sourdough seems to suit them particularly. And that makes a really deeply savory, delicious little offering. Okay, 1 second now. Let's see, we're getting there. I might take away that board and gather ourselves for a moment. So in this meal, the scrambled egg with the smoked eel, or which could be smoked salmon, or it could be smoked mackerel, or you could have put asparagus into your cream, cooked asparagus, and then it could be scrambled egg with asparagus, which would be a brilliant combination. And that would make a really lovely savory starter. Then our chicken with chervil and asparagus and grapes. The lovely sweet, juicy grapes with a small amount of creamy sauce is delicious. The other thing I brought today, which I'm not going to take home with me, and you're really going to think I've completely lost the plot now, but there you go, all in a good cause. Like the lovely little pea tendrils. If anybody growing peas? If you grow your own peas, by the way, as you will know, and anybody who grows your own beans, every part of the plant is edible. Most gardeners don't let cooks near the pea plants early enough. Okay, did you hear me? Okay, so because I start eating the peas at this stage, when they're like a snap, really, because when they fully fill out, you can't keep up with them. So start eating them early, and you'll still have enough of them when they fatten out to get the little peas out of the pods. The leaves are absolutely delicious, as are the flowers. Anyway, I'm going to put those rather randomly there like that, just to give a more little pastoral finish to our hopefully little summer evening, and what would hopefully make a lovely summer's meal. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. And where's Emer? I need Emer to come back. Emer? Thank you all very much indeed, and thank you to Bree and all the team at Ballymaloe for the festival. Thank you to Kerrygold for sponsoring this stage. There's lots of interesting events going on, talks still going on. There's another demonstration here at 7, isn't there, Emer?
Yes, I think 6:30.
6:30 this evening. So lots of inspiration, but always, all of this starts off under our feet in the soil. And for me, I mean, it's undoubtedly a spoilt goings on to be able to go and harvest a bit of asparagus, first thing in the morning before you're doing a demonstration in the afternoon. That's a gift. It's truly a gift. And equally to be able to work with produce like this lovely chicken from Mary and all the rest of it, and beautiful Irish cream. So it starts with the ingredients. We're immeasurably proud of Irish ingredients and cook them because we love them, and it gives us the food that hopefully nourishes us. And if we can turn it into something like this, well, then that's good too. Thank you all very much. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you.